in no place in business or in finance do we believe that there is such a thing as a sure bet, right? It's like sort of understood that the more risk you reduce, the less return you're getting. And so if you think that you can develop a hiring process that will produce candidates with zero risk, either, you're down selecting so far that you can't afford the result that comes out of it. You're not getting that return on it. And so that's why I like the idea, whatever your heuristic is, if it's passion for you, if it's something else for somebody else, if it's based on the cultural values of the organization you're joining, you need to believe in a system that is going to produce at least some people. You're not certain if they're going to work out.
And I think part of that is like, if you're having a failure rate, you're having people turn over, then it's probably not them, it's probably you. And, and a big part of hiring is you got to understand how to read people. And that's honestly probably the biggest part, because someone can tell you, hey, I can write great Python code. I'm a hell of a prompt engineer, but you can tell just by speaking with someone a lot of times whether that's actually true.
Well, and what's funny is that we're in this environment too, where there's a lot of companies that are saying that even now are still saying we can't find good engineers. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Leadership Exchange podcast. My name is Rob Ocel. I'm the VP of Innovation at This.Labs. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Andrew Tunnell. Andrew is the Vice President of AI at CompuGroup Medical US. How are you doing, Andrew?
Doing great. How are you, Rob?
I'm doing great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot of exciting things, but to get us started, can you kind of give a sense of, how you got into CompuGroup Medical? Like, how did you get into this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I can start from my background from the very beginning. So I grew up with startups. My dad was very active in starting businesses. So my first job, I was putting together sniper kits for the Special Operations Command. And then from there, he eventually started a company building GPS units. I worked there. And then my first taste and experience within machine learning and AI was writing patent applications for a public company that traded on NASDAQ called NXTID. So that was my first experience.
You did it while you were doing the patent applications, or while you were reading, you were like, "Ooh, that's a really good idea"?
No, we were incorporating AI into the patents. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was, kind of grew up in the startup scene. Then after college, started a Fintech startup, an AI trading app concept, built a team around that. And then after that, which wasn't successful, but went on to...
Many aren't. That's okay.
Yeah, not many are not. But no, I had a ton of fun. And then went into consulting, and then went into working at other tech startups along the way that used AI. And now I'm here at CompuGroup, leading their AI efforts in the US and India.
Well, it's interesting because we're sitting here live at an event where we were just having a lot of conversations around AI, had a couple of panels around AI. So I think a lot of people here have been talking about, maybe not their hot takes, but certainly their thoughts and impressions on AI and where it's going. I mean, give us an example of something that, maybe has your attention as you're working with your group on kind of what AI can do now, or where it's going to take us in the future.
Yeah, I think some of the things that I'm excited about are in terms of potential new technologies.
Sure.
So we have the LLMs of today, but going forward, what are the technologies that can problem solve? You're kind of seeing that with some of the attempts by OpenAI with Strawberry and GPT-01. So I think those technologies will have a lot of very useful applications going forward, because a lot of the applications like today are their voice, their chat, but what do you do for more complex problems? And a lot of the efficiency gains are located in the solving of those problems.
So what are you hoping is one of the problems that you're going to be able to solve with these things? Is there something that you kind of have an eye on, or are you running any proof of concepts, anything right now that you're able to talk about? I
can't disclose a lot, but a couple of things in the medical space specifically at CompuGroup.
Sure.
We got our eye on a couple of areas where we could capture the rewards there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think AI has a lot of hype around it, right? And people are certainly thinking about a lot of the things that it can do positively, and maybe some negatively. I know we were talking a little bit before this, some examples of things that people maybe should be aware of that are going to be possible with AI, or is already possible with AI, around like identity and things like that. Do you want to kind of share some of your thoughts on what's going to be capable to be done with AI there?
Yeah, I think there's a big shock factor coming with AI.
Sure.
In terms of cultural norms, in terms of identity, for example, now you can, we were talking about this before the podcast, you can record your voice exactly, and it'll memorize your voice. It'll output your voice exactly as you, for the most part. Did for me. So the question becomes like, how does that, from a personal identity standpoint, who owns that data? Who owns your voice at this point?
Right.
And there's certain companies, I won't name them, but they're out there, and in their T's and C's, they're putting, we own your voice. Do you accept to use this cool new product? So that's a challenging one. I think what you can do from a personal standpoint is make sure that you're being aware, you're educating yourself, and you're not just hitting accept on these terms and conditions. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for sure from a personal standpoint and from a company standpoint. I think companies have a little bit more leverage and they're a little bit more aware. You have your own compliance team that can look at these things. So
it's fascinating because it's the flip side of a feature that I think a lot of people are really excited about, which is the idea that, listen, if I have enough voice samples of myself, then I can have this thing read things in my voice. It can generate content for me. It can, imitate me credibly. I could do maybe voiceover edits to live audio and things like that. Yeah. That's really cool. But as you're saying, on the other side of it, I mean, I know our company has dealt with this. I'm sure yours has, and many other people's have. This idea of suddenly getting a text message from your CEO that says, "I desperately need you to run down to the bank and pull out some money from me, and I'll get you back for it." And what now would you do if that voice that's coming through is actually your boss's voice? I mean, it really makes that so much more credible of a threat than it's ever been to this point.
No, and the truth is, from a technology standpoint, I don't think there's many answers right now, and companies are running into those issues, which is frightening. You got to be on your toes, and I think that the short-term answer for the time being, and maybe even the long-term, is you go back to the way it was. Right? You have an understanding with your boss that if something like that needs to happen, it's not over the phone. Has to be done in person because you can't fake this, right?
Yeah.
So I think that might be the solution.
At least not yet. Right. Dear goodness, please, nobody be working on.
Not yet. Yeah.
Imitating clones.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Interesting. Yeah. It's funny because that sort of OPSEC thing, and I used to work in government contracting. It was a huge thing. Always talking about operational security, kind of how you're going to protect your equipment, you protect your office and things like that. And it's not spoken about enough, I don't think, anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it certainly is at some companies, if you're a medical company or places where you have protected information and things of that nature. Fintech companies deal with this a lot. But it's going to have to be part of our general sort of vocabulary going forward, this idea of how do you protect yourself. I mean, we both talked about this before the podcast. We're both parents. This is going to be something we're going to have to tell our kids, right? Yeah. Is that like, even if you get on the phone and you talk to someone that sounds exactly like mom or dad, that may not be us.
Right.
So it's going to have to be something that we grow with now going forward.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot of companies, a lot of type of hey, we got hacked types of stories in the news because people aren't used to it. I think especially senior management these days because technology has changed so fast. What they're used to, it's not the same game anymore. So if you get a call from your CEO or your CFO saying, "Hey, move money here," you don't want to get in trouble or let go. You're going to do it, right? So, and then you have a similar kind of concern when it comes to AI, more the traditional hacking, not the human side, but the traditional hacking where you're using programming tools. Now AI can spit out code in seconds, milliseconds, going forward, and you're going to have situations where it's going to be hard to defend against, for sure.
Yeah, it's funny because there's always been this concept of like security through obscurity. This idea that some people are, say, oh, one of the ways we're going to keep ourselves secure is we're not going to advertise what our user interfaces, our APIs are. We're not going to let people know where they are. But we had a lot of conversations today where it was like, sophisticated enough AI, some of these ones that you're talking about, these ones that are sort of agent-based and are going to be able to kind of do some problem solving, they might be able to do just some general scanning or discovery of services on the internet, snip around or maybe do some experimentation to find their contracts and then be able to manipulate them from there. Obscurity is really, it was never a good thing to rely on, but it's going to be even less so going forward. Because like you said, you're going to have these agents that are going to be able to do what would take normal people tremendous amounts of time to do and do it quite quickly, to be able to graph out exactly what you have and where all the vulnerabilities could be.
No, I agree. And luckily the answer for that is a little simpler, in my opinion. If you have AI fighting against you, you can use AI to counter back.
Oh, there we go.
That's going to be the only way. You're not going to be able to do it with in the same means that you used to. You're going to have to up the tooling that you're using to fight the cyber attacks. The human side's not so easy because
what is that?
Yeah.
What might that entail? So is the the good AI in this case, the superhero AI in this scenario, is it doing code modifications to close down vulnerabilities as soon as they're found, or is it doing intelligent filtering of traffic, things of that nature, or is it a little bit of all that? Like, what are some of the things that that your AI agent is going to be able to do when it's being attacked by some sort of malicious AI agent?
Oh, mine? I don't know. But in general, conceptually, I think it'll be all of the above.
Yeah,
it'll be all of the above. It might even take it a step further to the point where you're building programs in a reactionary way, or maybe 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead of what the hackers are doing, and it's doing that in a kind of as we discussed earlier, in a very logical problem-solving approach. Whereas to do that today, I mean, it would take months, for example. But maybe it's doing that in real time. I think that could be the future.
One of the things with AI that's really interesting is that it is going to change things that maybe we're not thinking about right now. Mm-hmm. So you and I were talking a little bit before the podcast about how, one of the areas that is sort of something we take for granted about the world is that manufacturing is kind of expensive in the U.S., right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's expensive here, and less expensive so in other places. And sort of, you had an interesting thought about how AI might turn that on its head a little bit. And I'm curious if you can explain a little bit what that prediction is and kind of why you think that.
Yeah. So for the past over 20 years, we've been getting most of our products from China, right? Because the cost model there is much more efficient as opposed to producing it in the United States. But if you take generative AI along with robotics, now the question is, how does that transform the future of manufacturing in the U.S.? Do you still need trade partners to the extent that you're using them today, like China and India?
Sure.
Or can you bring it in-house a little bit? And that's where my prediction is that's where I see this going, is we're going to have robotics in combination with AI take over manufacturing in the United States and raise it from the dead a little bit.
Wow. That would be such a radical shift.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel when you make that prediction? Because honestly, there are so many massive implications of something like that.
Yeah, I think it would be a radical shift, but it would be to the benefit of everyone in the United States, because if you think about it, you're cutting out all of the logistical cost from shipping those goods from our partners overseas back to the United States. Now you're making it in your backyard of Dallas or Atlanta or wherever your manufacturing plant is, and it makes it provides the ability for entrepreneurs in the United States to maybe start up manufacturing businesses much more effectively, whereas before they couldn't even think about it because the cost is too high. The hourly rate is too high. But if you have robots, as you expand the manufacturing of robots, that cost of labor will come down, right?
Yeah, so I mean, you've already alluded to this a little bit, but we've had automation in the U.S. manufacturing for a long time, right? I mean, auto industry, many industries, a lot of automation, a lot of robotics. So help people understand, in your vision that you're sort of projecting here, how is AI supporting robotics? What is the pivot point, the inflection point that it's causing that's really going to make this a lot cheaper?
So in the production line right now, robotics is doing a lot of the basic tasks where you can use traditional programming methods to train those robotics on how to do that. But in the future, I think it's going to be a lot more problem solving. So the places where today you can't manufacture without humans, because you need to have someone who can discern between certain things, identify certain things in the certain products that maybe are bad and taking those out, and then doing very specific problem solving based tasks. That's where robotics and AI meet in the future, and that's where you're going to see that catalyst.
Wow, that's really interesting. So in your mind, what strikes me about that is this idea that AI is going to give us so much flexibility, because and what that might enable us to do, because there is this huge capital investment up front, right? To do automation, and I assume to buy the models and to tune the models that are the things that are going to be able to drive that and really bring this cost cutting piece. But once you've gone over that threshold, though, that's kind of all that you're going to have to spend, other than kind of regular maintenance and things like that. So, it's really kind of interesting what kind of future that might open up for us, for the people that can attain that, on how rapidly maybe they might be able to possibly even change or retool their factories, right? Because it might not even be just that you need workers that working 24/7, keeping the factories going, but it might just be that you can't manufacture the same widget 24/7. You might need to be able to manufacture this widget for this period of time, and then sort of maybe have some sort of retooling situation to be able to manufacture something else.
Yeah, if you could dynamically and quickly change out the different functionality of your robots, maybe 5 years from now, then maybe you can switch from making hats to shoes like that. Whereas today, you would have to rework the whole factory. It costs millions of dollars. But if you have the tooling and it's all interchangeable and modular, then you can capitalize on revenue opportunities as a manufacturing unit going forward.
And then we're that much closer to having a Star Trek replicator, and we can just build whatever we want at any point.
Exactly.
Yeah, there we go. Wonderful. Well, in order to drive this kind of AI revolution, right, we need a new cadre, a new future of sort of AI engineers. And I think, we're having a lot of conversations with different groups of people today. They were kind of saying, where are we going to find all these people from? And I think what's interesting about the marketplace, the way that it is right now, is that, you kind of saw as crypto sort of, I'm not going to say that it's gone away, but as it's waned a little bit, you've seen a fair number of people and engineers kind of come over from the crypto space into AI. And I think secondarily, you've seen, as big tech has sort of had a pushback from the sort of the height of the COVID era, a lot of engineers suddenly come free and also sort of go into AI. I think there's actually a lot of people that are interested in becoming AI engineers. And so maybe one of the difficult things is actually not where am I going to find these people, but how am I going to find the right kind of people in order to do that, to solve the problems that I have. So I'm kind of curious, for you, when you're thinking about hiring people, or you're thinking about developing a team, what for you are some of the things that you're looking for in order to build that effective team?
Yeah, I'd say I have a more radical approach to hiring people.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so I don't put as much credence and emphasis on the school that you went to, or the letters after your name. It's more of what can you do, and what's your mentality, right? What's your work mentality? Are you going to work really hard? Are you passionate about what you do, or are you looking to get a work from home job where you're chilling on the couch and you're telling me you're working, right? So I think there's ways to figure out if someone's looking at those and has passion about what they're doing. And one thing I'll do during a tech interview with an engineer is I'll ask them, what are your personal projects, right? And if they are working on things outside of work that applies directly to what I'm hiring them for, then it's a huge plus. It's a huge win. It's a great indicator that they're going to excel in the future and go above and beyond, which is often the case today, because things they're not slowing down with AI. They're becoming more and more competitive, not less competitive, and it's never going to go back, right?
What are other ways that people can show that passion? Obviously, there's some people that they might think something the most interesting in the world, but they might have a handful of hobbies. They might be a musician, they might have a family, things of that nature. So it can't just be exclusively you go home, you're coding all night, you're doing AI all night, doing AI while you sleep, doing AI when you wake up. So are there other ways that people can kind of show that sort of passion that's been successful for you?
I think it's on that front. There's other things you hire for, right? It's not just passion, but on passion, I think it's pretty straightforward. Are you working on what you love? And if you're doing other things in your free time, that's fine. But maybe that shows you're not as passionate, and that's just how it is in my mind. But that's not the only thing you want to hire for, right? You also want to hire. Right, obviously. I put a strong emphasis on honesty, and does the person have character? Yeah. Because if you hire someone that has a lot of passion, maybe they're going to use that passion in the wrong way, right?
Exactly right.
So I put a lot of emphasis on that as well, and I think it's really important that you hire someone with character that has morals, and they're gonna do right by you, and that's going to be the culture building block that you're hiring right there.
So how would you want to structure this then in the thing? Would you want to have a conversation with someone up front that's sort of just about sort of character issues, passion issues, sort of fit kind of concepts like that? And then do you do a technical thing? Do you kind of try to mix and match it all together? How might you want to separate that out? Which one do you think is the stronger filtering effect, I suppose?
Yeah, I'd say maybe the technical test up front, because that's kind of the baseline.
Yeah.
Right. But on the candidate side, maybe it is a little less fair because they're investing a lot of time. That test is probably the more involved, right? As opposed to like a 30-minute interview. But that's the table stakes, I think. Beyond that is really where you get and you find the information on the person that you're hiring.
Yeah, I always think that one thing that a lot of companies are doing wrong is they just try to find the best employee. And I think that's me personally, I think that's a bit of a misnomer. This idea that they're being like some sort of best.
Right.
And I mean, secondarily, even if there could be some sort of best that you could derive by giving them some sort of insanely difficult test, it's like, are you paying to have the best anyways?
Right.
Are you really just trying to find the best possible engineer that doesn't realize that they're the best possible engineer or whatever else role that you're hiring for? And so I find that like some places really do over-index on, oh, we're going to come up with all these sort of riddles. We're going to have all these sort of tests. We're going to make them write a bunch of stuff. We're going to make them do all of this. We're going to make them do all these different things as if you can find out exactly how good someone is. And I find like that's one of the hardest signals to get in an interview process.
Yeah.
It's like to say with any sort of accuracy exactly how good someone will be. The types of people that are going to pass with flying colors your extremely difficult test are people that are like, a standard deviation or two away from the mean anyways. And it's like, yeah, no kidding, right? We all knew that person was good.
Yeah.
Your system didn't find that person. To me, it's like the value would be in a system that can find someone that's right on the verge, where some people think they're good, some people don't, but you find those hidden people in the rough. Like, to me, those are the greatest sort of finds in the hiring process.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you put too many tests, what you end up testing for is not the skill sets, but that you think you're testing for, but it's persistence.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
You're going to find the more, which is good, that can be very valuable and often is.
Right.
But yeah, you're lying to yourself as a company if you think you're going to find someone who can do X, Y, and Z. And I find that doesn't really matter. It's more about the passion. It's more about the character. It's that person that's willing to go above and beyond for you and really work as a team and a high performing team, as opposed to coming in and maintaining the status quo. And part of what I do when I'm hiring is I'll look for people specifically where they're going into roles that maybe they perceive are a little bit above them.
Right. So
I think from a hiring strategy perspective, you want to find developers or other people in any area, people that haven't been in that position before. You can kind of put the incentive out there and see if they'll reach the bar.
Yeah.
As opposed to finding someone who's done it before or has been there 40 years, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they're too comfortable. That's one thing that I personally, when I'm hiring someone, I try to avoid finding someone that's too comfortable, because that could lead to problems.
And that's super fascinating, because it's exactly right? In no place in business or in finance do we believe that there is such a thing as a sure bet. Right? It's sort of understood that the more risk you reduce, the less return you're getting. And so if you think that you can develop a hiring process that will produce candidates with zero risk, well, then either, you're down selecting so far that you can't afford the result that comes out of it, or, you're not getting that return on it. And so that's why I like the idea, whatever your heuristic is, if it's passion for you, if it's something else for somebody else, if it's based on the cultural values of the organization you're joining, whatever it is, like, you need to believe in a system that is going to produce at least some people you're not certain if they're going to work out.
Yes.
Right? Inherently.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I think part of that is like, if you're having a failure rate, you're having people turn over, then it's probably not them, it's probably you. And, And a big part of hiring is you got to understand how to read people. And that's honestly probably the biggest part, because someone can tell you, hey, I can write great Python code. I'm a hell of a prompt engineer, but you can tell just by speaking with someone a lot of times whether that's actually true.
Well, and what's funny is that we're in this environment too, where there's a lot of companies that are saying that even now are still saying we can't find good engineers. And we know that there's good engineers out there that are saying, I can't find a company. And you know that any time that there's this kind of mismatch where there's both suppliers and consumers that are both saying we can't find a market, that there's some inefficiency where that marketplace is supposed to be. And I think that's happening a bit here in hiring. There's just these sort of leaders in these companies that just aren't able to get or believe they're not able to get the signal that they want. And then these people that aren't getting through because it's very difficult to project to somebody exactly what they want to see, right? And so I love this idea. I think we really need this idea that people almost, it's not that you need to be less demanding, but you do need to have a bit more of a flexible take. It can be like you said, listen, if passion's going to be a heuristic, a powerful heuristic for you, then you have to be willing to maybe take that signal, that strong passion signal, over an uncertain technical signal.
Absolutely right.
And then, so instead, you're not trying to find the best technical resource imaginable. That would be great. But you're trying to make sure that they qualify technically, and then find those other heuristics that you like, and just trust that either they have that ability or they will be able to rapidly get that ability.
Right. No, I totally agree. Yeah, and you have new AI programming tools coming up now, which is equaling the playing field. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think hard skills can be learned, but you can't teach passion. So might as well focus on the passion and take a bet there.
Okay.
Because you're going to take a bet either way, right? You're going to take a bet because of the hard skills. You're going to take a bet because of the passion. I think you'll have a higher success rate if you bet on the passion.
Interesting. All right. Well, listen, for people that are interested in this conversation or interested in things that you have to say, can you let people know where they can find you online?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only on LinkedIn, so Andrew Tunnell on LinkedIn, and that's where to find me.
Okay. We'll have to work on getting you maybe some other socials, but for now, LinkedIn is the place to be. Honestly, LinkedIn's been a fun place recently.
Yeah,
a lot of people moving over. A lot of the conversation moving over from Twitter. We talk about this a lot. LinkedIn is starting to be actually a pretty nice place to hang out.
Yeah, they have like a TikTok scrolling feature now, it seems.
Oh, that's what we needed. Yeah, that's what we need, another TikTok scrolling feature.
Yeah, exactly.
But awesome. Well, thank you so much, Andrew, for being here. Thank you all for being here for this episode of the Leadership Exchange. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter @RoboCell. And we hope to see you all here next time. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.